walking into a facility like that, thinking that you're going to do possibly, the rest of your life in jail? What's going through your head?
Yeah, they sent me to a maximum security. So I didn't go to like a federal prison camp, Club Fed. I didn't go to Club Fed. I thought I was going to a camp. I was on the bus because I'm like, weed, first offense, nonviolent. We're driving on the bus and we stop at the low, let people off. There's two places left, the USP, which is a maximum security, or the camp, where they don't even have a fence, where you're playing golf and whatever. And there's like one dude on there, it looks like a straight square. And that's when I knew I was hit, because they're like, we got one person for the camp. And I look at this dude, and he's like, that's me. And I'm like, damn, I'm going to the pen. And so when I got off there, it was just like TV shit. Like when I got out the next day and walked the yard, like you see nothing but the worst of the worst. And so I'm looking like, damn, all this for some weed. It was crazy.
Yeah, no, it's got to be your worst nightmare.
Yeah, it definitely was.
So how long, was it right away that you realized, like, I'm not going to accept this? Or was there a point in time where you kind of, I don't want to say accepted the fact that you were in prison, but just kind of like, okay, now I got to shift my focus and my energy to staying alive inside of this place and making sure that I understand and learn what's going on around me, because it's not a place where I've been before. Was it a little bit of time before you kind of shifted back into, I'm going to get my ass out of here? Or?
Yeah, well, so when I first got in there, I thought I was getting out in like 6 months. When everyone goes to this, you go into denial. When you get a long sentence in the federal system and you've never been to prison, you're like, this doesn't happen. Someone's going to fix this. Like, this is just something I have to go through. Somebody, a higher court is going to look at this, say, this is wrong, send them back. And we had some good arguments. Like, they did a search and seizure in one of my houses, and they didn't have a warrant. They had a warrant for the car. And instead, they raided my son's house, and they went through everything. They took a bunch of, like, photos of when I was younger with, like, guns and weed and just dumb shit when you're young, taking pictures. And then they got a bunch of clothing that was, like, Snoop Dogg clothing, like Eastsiders and stuff like that. And they used all that as evidence of me being, like, a gang member. So they said I'm from the Bay Area Crips. I'm from Snoop's Crip gang. Like, they put me in like 3 different gangs. They didn't know what the hell they were trying to do. So that scared the jury. They showed them these pictures of me when I was 14 years old with some guns. Like, we went shooting. My dad, my dad was big on Second Amendment, even though he was old. And so, they took all those pictures and all these clothes of, like, different kind of, rap industry, hip hop clothing, and said this is gang attire. These bulletproof vests weren't used for the industry. They're used because they're out shooting people and doing all this crazy madness. So they used that evidence, and that's what scared the jury and got me convicted. So we had a good argument that was an invalid search. My judge wouldn't throw it out. So we went to the appellate court, and we pretty much won at our oral argument. The court's like, yo, this evidence should have never been in there. We need to suppress it. And so my attorneys were celebrating. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be going back for a new trial. I'm going home. And then 2 months later, I get the opinion, and yeah, they threw the evidence out, but they said, oh, it wouldn't have changed the outcome, so we're going to affirm your sentence. And so, man, that was all I had left was that appeal. And after that, it's dimmer and dimmer from there. And so at that point, I'm like, man, I just got to focus and keep my mind in prison, because I was living outside still. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm planning every day what I'm going to get back in the industry, albums I'm going to drop. And then when that came, I just like, I gotta get comfortable. I'm gonna be here for a while. And so I never gave up, though, because my judge, he did something that no judge had ever done. As he was sentencing me to 55 years, he called on the president to commute my sentence. And no federal judge had ever done that. So he says, while my hands are tied and this sentence is unjust, I call upon the president to fix this, and the Congress to change the law that forced him to do that. And so that kept me a little bit of hope. But he didn't say commute a sentence to immediate time served. He says, when he served enough time. And that could be 10 years, that could be 15 years, 12 years, whatever. And so, that was some hope, but it wasn't like any immediate hope. And then so I started, focusing more on, surviving. And then I started, really hitting the law library and really looking into the law and understanding it. And that's when I started fighting to get myself out. And I started just